All right, good evening, everybody. It's Rabbi Kolakowski, the Koblenzer Rebbe here. Just talking, because it's kind of hard to do anything else right now. Let's look at the Parsha this week. Is Parsha Shmos. The fascinating thing is the Zohar in Parsha Shmos has probably the strongest condemnation of abortion that we find in classical Jewish literature. And to me, that's a fascinating point, because I have a friend that I think most people who are watching this channel probably know. A friend with whom I disagree on certain issues. It's Rabbi, but I agree with him on many other issues. Rabbi Asher Meza from Florida, we were neighbors down in Virginia back in the day. And Rabbi Meza's an interesting character. Maybe I should call him and see what he wants to say about this particular issue. Is that here you have an issue that's two issues that are near and dear to his heart that are coming in conflict. Because on one hand, his opinion is that the what do you call it? The Zohar, not only the Zohar, but really not only Kabbalah, but also Agadata in general, are not central to Judaism in his opinion, whereas obviously others would strongly disagree and say that indeed these are the center of Judaism, is the Kabbalah, the Zohar, the Kisvei Ari. Certainly my Rebbe, one of my Rebbeim, of course all the Hasidic Rebbeim, Kalav Rebbe and so forth, but my Rebbe, and that's my Rebbe, is Kalav Rebbe, but also I have a Rebbe, Rabbi Jeffrey Siegel, who's a Talmud Muvhak of Chacham Avadi Yosef, Zchus Yigaleinu, and Rabbi Siegel very openly says that he considers the Kabbalah of the Ari and the Zohar to be central to Judaism, and there's really no Judaism without that center, as opposed to Rabbi Meza's opinion that even though the two of them agree on many things, I could not get them to have a conversation, which I'd like to see. Obviously, Rabbi Siegel is a senior Rav, and really, I think one of the hidden Gedolei Yisrael that we have in this generation. Probably one of the greatest scholars I've ever met, and Rabbi Meza is a different type of a character. Neither of them are traditional yeshiva scholars, right? But Rabbi Meza is certainly less traditional, but they're both atypical and not really traditional. In any event, and just where they're coming from, Rabbi Siegel is a Baal Tshuva, and Rabbi Meza is a Ger Tzedek. Anyway, it's an interesting thing to me, because they both believe in that Jews should proselytize. That's probably the most controversial issue that both of them embrace, which I to a certain extent agree as well. And Rabbi Siegel is a strong Breslover Chassid, and Reb Nachman Breslover also held this opinion, and this relates to that same issue. So anyway, this is the question that I have for Rabbi Meza. It makes more sense for Rabbi Siegel, but the question for Rabbi Meza, Harav Siegel, the Chacham, the Gadol, is not just a rabbi, whereas Rabbi Meza is a rabbi who has his own ideas. and is a smart person, and I find his philosophy to be compelling, and is, I'll admit that I've been influenced by Rabbi Meza's philosophy to a certain extent in certain areas, but not in the area of Kabbalah. That's the major area that I disagree with him. But on the other hand, he is a very strong pro-life advocate, activist, because of his background as a born-again Christian, really, to a certain extent, and a certain belief that he has is that, he would like to see, I haven't heard him say this in a long time, but in the old days when we were neighbors, he used to say he'd like to see the Christian morals combined with the Jewish theology. And to a certain extent, that's what you do see in much of the Orthodox world today. Particularly, look at someone like Ben Shapiro going and speaking at the March for Life. The same thing with Rabbi Yehuda Levin, who I was able to meet on a number of occasions. And these types of things within the Orthodox world. But in any event, and I know Rabbi Meza has, as much as he is uncomfortable, to say the least, with the Zohar, he has brought this Zohar up, I believe, in his opposition to abortion. And, that's the question that I'd like to hear from him. How does he balance that really the strongest anti-abortion statement, like we said, in classical Judaism is this, in a classical Jewish text, is this Zohar in Parshas Shmos, saying that this was this particularly egregious sin. It causes God to ignore our prayers, and that the Hebrew women in Egypt were Meiser Nefesh not to engage in abortion, when it would seem like that would be something that would seem to be worthwhile to do, to avoid bringing children into being slaves to the Egyptians. It would seem like a reasonable way out for maybe for people today if they were in that situation, and yet they did not stoop to that, and for that they were blessed. And for those who do engage in this practice, they are punished. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to this issue, it's a nuanced issue. It's not cut and dry. I remember I used to be a guest speaker at Professor Smith's class at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, in his class in world religion. And one of my colleagues was also speaking the same night, Rabbi Dennis Beck Berman, who is a phenomenal person. He's a rabbi of a conservative shul, but he's a student of Rav Steinsaltz, Zechron Livracha, a student of Rav Froman, Zechron Livracha. I was able to meet Rav Froman a few times. I didn't really talk to him, but I davened with him in his minyan and said hello to him. And also a shtickle chassid of Reb Zalman Shlomi Shechter, Olav Shalom. And so an interesting character with a Hasidic influence in his life, but a scholar, and someone who I always enjoyed spending time with and visiting whenever I saw him. I believe he's still the rabbi at Temple Brit Achim, Congregation Brit Achim in Petersburg, Virginia. Maybe I should even give him a call, see how he's doing. So in any event, I remember Rabbi Beck Berman saying, pretty much you're never going to find a rabbi who says all abortion is prohibited and you'll never find a rabbi that says all abortion is good, right? It's a complicated issue. But pretty much you'll have, people are aware of the Mishnah in Oholos that talks about abortion, saying that when the mother's life is in danger, one is commanded, even a fully formed fetus has to be aborted, with the condition that its head is not come out, nor if the feet came out first, 51% of the body came out. Once that happens, the child is considered to be an independent life and no longer the limb of his mother. Now and so therefore, basically the way that it's looked at, even though this is crude and uncomfortable, is that in the case of the mother's life being endangered, we could look at the unborn baby as something akin to a gangrene limb that's threatening the life of a person, and so we amputate the limb, or an appendix that's about to burst, and remove the appendix in order to save the life of the patient. However, if someone just because they feel like it wants to cut off their finger or cut off their arm just to see what it's like, and it's not a matter of life or death, right? According to Judaism, that's a sin, because our body belongs to God. And so that's essentially what the Mishnah is expressing there, is that but once the child is fully formed, is not just the issue of being fully formed or not fully formed, but once the child is independent of the mother, once the child has been born, that is the point in which it is considered murder. Otherwise, it's considered an amputation. It's nonetheless a sin, but it's considered an amputation. Whereas once the child is born, then it is considered murder. And the way that the Mishnah expresses is that we cannot make like a Sophie's choice here of which life. They're both equal lives, the mother and the baby. And so even if both are going to die, it's not our choice. Then we just let nature take its course. Now, obviously, if one of them dies, then we do what we can to save the other. And if there's something we can do to save them both, we do the most we can. And of course, with modern medicine, that's the case, vast majority of the time. It's very rare that a mother's life is being saved nowadays through abortion. And in general, those cases, it's not even that would it even work? Would there even be, with some obvious exceptions to fallopian pregnancy, things like that, in which case the fetus is not viable anyway. But in any event, how do we look at this? In halacha, it's not as simple as it sounds. Just because you have this Mishnah, because I saw somebody on Twitter or Facebook or somewhere, they're saying, what's something that sounds Jewish but isn't Jewish? And one of the comments was Ben Shapiro's views on abortion. And that's a really short-sighted and ignorant approach to what Judaism is, because the truth of the matter is, as we see from the Zohar, if you want to compare the Zohar and the Mishnah, there are two radically different views that seem to be expressed here about this subject. But the truth of the matter is that even in the Talmud itself and in the Braisos, you're going to have different opinions as far as this question of Uber Yerach Imoy or Uber Lav Yerach Imoy. Is a fetus a limb of the mother, in which case it would be considered like the Mishnah, that the Mishnah is of that opinion, that Uber Yerach Imoy, that therefore it's not murder to perform an abortion. It's the equivalent of surgery, of amputating a limb, removing an appendix, something like that. If we accept the opinion of Uber Yerach Imoy, which again is the opinion of the Mishnah that's expressed there. However, there are other opinions in the Talmud of Uber Lav Yerach Imoy, that a fetus is not the limb of its mother, which it would seem to indicate that therefore it would be murder to commit an abortion if we say Uber Lav Yerach Imoy. And both of those opinions appear in the Talmud, and it's not cut and dry. The other issue, though, is that even if you say Uber Lav Yerach Imoy, there still could be the opinion that we keep it to be that we consider it to be the when it comes to life or death situation, that's the only time when it is a different approach, but not in general. And the truth of the matter is that's how it is anyway. That I don't know anybody who says that you're allowed to make an abortion just for convenience. There are those within the Jewish world who recognize perhaps mental anguish and mental illness as being a terminal illness, which it is, and that if it could lead to suicide, something like that, that might be a consideration. Things like that, as opposed to there are other opinions that are more strict. But we see here that, of course, the Zohar is extremely strict, saying that it's that this is a reason why God will ignore our prayers is because of the sin of abortion. It should be noted that Judaism, in a certain sense, is a two-tiered system in halacha, even though it's not really seen in the practical sense that way, but to a certain extent, we have the teachings of the Noahide laws, which is how we are taught that non-Jewish people who do not convert to Judaism are judged by that rubric. It was never intended the way that it's turned into today to be a movement of some kind, but it was really just more of a theoretical issue in classical Judaism as opposed to a movement. And also, I would say classically, as my friend Rabbi Meza expresses often, it's seen that the better option of the two is full conversion, and only someone who for some reason cannot convert would quote-unquote remain a Noahide, but there really was never a concept classically of a Noahide community the way we have now. If someone really is interested in Judaism as their religion, as their faith, I would recommend to convert to Judaism. But that's just my opinion, and that of my Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Moshe Lazarus Shlita. also expressed that to us. And I remember asking him, I was like, how come everyone says differently? He's like, you got to ask everyone else. So, in any event, under the Noahide laws, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that somebody who, a non-Jew who performs an abortion is committing murder. Now, the exact term for murder in the 7 laws of Noah is actually bloodshed and not murder. And so all bloodshed is a capital offense, and that's learned out from the verse in the book of Genesis. Shofech dam adam ba'adam dama yishafech. That he who sheds the blood of a human being in a human being, his blood shall be spilled. And so the Talmud asks, and again, there's several opinions what this means. The one opinion is that when it says dam adam ba'adam, the blood of a human being inside of a human being, so it asks the question, what is a human being inside of a human being? Having omer zeh uver shebemei imai. We should say that this is is a fetus in his mother's womb. And so therefore we would see that that under the rubric of the 7 Noahide laws, which tend to be stricter about the issues that are at hand within the 7 Noahide laws, which is the same when it comes to theft, that it was a capital offense for a Noahide to steal a penny or less than a penny, and certainly that's how the Rambam would learn it. Other Rishonim say that the law of Dinah means that it's up to and including the death penalty, but it's not necessarily so. There's not a chiyuv to give the death penalty, but rather a license to give the death penalty for any violation of the 7 laws of Noah. So, which again, so it seems Rashi, Ramban, some other Mefarshim seem to understand that includes failure to fulfill the mitzvah of dinim. But there's another, which some of the other Rishonim disagree with. So in any event, that is what we're dealing with here, is that it seems that under the laws of Noah, at least according to the one opinion, it is murder to perform an abortion. And my argument has often been that, when we're voting in America, we're not, the Jewish people are a very small minority in the world, and so we should be more concerned with the Noahide laws being pushed. Don't murder, don't steal, things like that, the basic laws, as opposed to our own parochial laws that only apply to Jews, the Sabbath and so forth, although we are interested in religious freedom. So in any event, we see that this is an issue that we have to take seriously, and it's not so simple when this girl on YouTube on Facebook or Twitter said that Ben Shapiro's views on abortion, they sound Jewish but they're not Jewish. That's not the way Judaism works. Because there's a plethora of opinions within the Jewish community of how things are supposed to be done. So just to say, we have this one Mishnah, and that's the be-all and end-all of the Jewish views on abortion, what we discussed here really didn't even scratch the surface, because when you get to the Achronim, you have many different discussions. Of course, my holy ancestor, the Chavos Yoyer, has his rather liberal approach to it, which is also not that clear. And then you have, based on that, the Ivitz has his approach in certain cases, his opinions on the issue, which again maybe even more liberal than the Chavos Yoyer. He's basing on the Chavos Yoyer. And then you have other opinions like Reb Moshe, who are very strict. And Reb Moshe uses a term of Ritzicha, that he certainly considers abortion to be a form of murder. And so you have these various opinions within the Achronim as well on this issue. All right, well, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later.